Yo, 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 what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the daily updates. Gonna go ahead and pull up what we're gonna be talking about in today's video. And here we go. So first things first, our first daily update was a pretty big success. Got quite a bit of people interested in that video, and we had everybody watching inside of the community. For future reference, if you guys are wondering where I post these daily updates, typically they're going to be in the community tabs section, which you can obviously navigate to by clicking on the little community button up here, which will take you to this page where, typically speaking, I'll be pinning that specific community post to the top of the community, and then you'll be able to click in here and then obviously leave any questions that you might have in the comments, or just interact and engage with the post in general. But pretty successful, and we have a couple different things that I want to cover today. Sounds like the music is getting a little too intense though, so let's go ahead and crank that down just a bit so I'm not trying to argue with the music a bit. But we have some interesting pieces of news that recently kind of came out over this last weekend. Some of it came out on Friday. And I just kind of want to cover those pieces of news and show you guys some new stuff that was recently launched that I think you guys will find really interesting and potentially helpful for your workflows or whatever else you're working on. All right, so first things first, let's go ahead and go over this new update, or well, it's not really Grok, I guess. This is their image or imagine mode, but it looks like they've launched a image 2.0 quality mode, which basically means that there is a new image generator that we have access to now inside of Grok. Many of you might not actually know that Grok has a built-in image generator, which is simply called Grok Imagine, but you can create some pretty impressive stuff with this, pretty much for the most part completely free. There's also a built-in video generator too that gives you up to 720p if you're on the free plan, but you do have to update to one of their pricing plans if you were to want something with a little bit more higher quality or have a little bit more creative control over the stuff that you're generating inside of this application. But again, pretty cool nonetheless that we can generate some pretty simple stuff inside of here as well. And you'll see down here it says introducing Image 2.0, our most powerful image generation model, better at detail, professional use, and everything else. So let's go ahead and test this. We'll do an Apple on a workbench in a we'll see in a garage or something like that. I don't know. We don't have to be very specific here. We're going to go Apple on a workbench in a garage. And then to kind of put this head to head with a similar image generation model, I'm going to go ahead and hop over into ChatGPT. I'm going to go ahead and run the same exact image generation prompt, and then we'll see the differences in quality, and we'll do a live test of this as well. Okay, so here we go. Here's our Apple on a workbench. That was actually pretty quick too. That only took, I would say, less than like 15 seconds or so to actually give us what we're looking for. I would say this one looks a little bit better than this one. And that's also one of the other things too, is that Grok Imagine now gives you alternatives. So they won't just give you one singular image. They'll give you two different alternative images that essentially you can kind of choose from and pick which one you prefer. So here's ChatGPT's answer to this specific prompt, and honestly I would say this looks a little bit more realistic than this. This looks just a little bit more AI generated than Grok's Imagine 2.0. Also, one of the really cool things about this is, let's say, for example, we go into this and start generating specific items or a specific scene or something like that. You'll see here when I open up this image on the right side, there's this new little set place called segments, which basically takes individual items or individual parts of the image and separates them into things that we can either edit or even download as specific assets. So for example, I can click on this red apple, and if I wanted to change it to a green apple, I can simply type in that edit, hit the enter button. Oh, and you do need to have a pricing plan in order to make those individual segment edits, just so you guys are aware. But again, still a pretty cool feature, and many of you out there might have a Grok subscription, so you're able to do that. Also, I could potentially hit the download button on this red apple, and then boom, I have a red apple PNG that I can use to do just about anything. This could be really useful for things like thumbnail designing, graphic designing, where maybe you need a specific something or another. Like, let's say, let's go into a new generation here, and let's say I needed a blank billboard for whatever graphic design thing I'm building. Whoops, looks like I actually hit my limit there on overall generation. So luckily it did it in the middle of the video. But basically you can download individual items inside of here and use them for different things that you might be doing or other projects that you might be working on as well. So this is definitely pretty interesting. I think it's going to be worth kind of playing with this a little bit just to get a feel for potentially what you can do with this. Okay, now another piece of news, and this is rumored, so this is more of a speculation, but it does seem that people are getting a little notification at the top here where it says Gems are going to be retiring on October 20th. If you're somebody that uses Google Gemini, you probably know what a gem is, but for those who don't, this is basically very similar to something like Claude artifacts, which are basically like these projects that potentially have like a user interface to them. Typically speaking, that's what we tend to see with these type of gems that exist out there. One of the examples of a gem that I built at one point was a YouTube description writer, which basically just, as the name says, writes YouTube descriptions. But apparently, once October 20th is going to come, these are going to get completely removed and replaced entirely by skills or agent skills, which are probably the better way to go forward with this, I think. Unfortunately, gems are not really all that useful. They look pretty and they look interesting, but these, fundamentally speaking, just really aren't all that useful, especially if you compare this to something like what's going to replace them, which is basically a skills framework, or agent skills framework rather, kind of instead of that, which I think is interesting. Okay, and just to finish out this video, this is something we're going to go way further in depth into, but I did want to answer Cody Anthony's question, which was basically, what about that new Prime agent? Have you had a chance to play with it yet? I responded in the community, but I wanted to actually address it, since usually in these daily update videos, if you guys want to leave a comment below this post, I answer everything. Anything that you guys might want to ask, I answer it not only in the community, but I also make a segment of my daily update videos to give you answers on those as well. So let's go ahead and take a look. This is Prime Agent, and this was the first thing that I pulled up here, but this is their actual website that you can go and read what this agent does and kind of how it works a little bit. Basically, this is an agent harness, which is basically very similar, or almost the same exact thing as something like OpenClaw or Hermes agent, for example. However, the big kind of, I guess, drawing point of this specific agent process, and the one that everybody's been talking about in short form content, myself included, has been this graph right here, which is basically the ARC AGI 3 compute test. And it looks like I forgot to pay for YouTube Reds, so we're getting a nice little ad playing in the middle there. Anyways, what this graph basically dictates is the level of compute power. Many people are saying that this is like what we're going to use in order to figure out which AI models can potentially hit like a quote unquote AGI level of compute, which is like massive amounts of reasoning and computing and things like that. And you'll see here, one of the things that it compares itself to is, you'll see these little gray lines down here. And these are basically the existing GPT 5.6, Claude Opus. These are existing AI models and their reasoning or thinking capability that they can do. Now, when we take these same models and put them into something like Prime Agent, for example, you'll see that we go from a compute score of about 30% all the way up to 95% in Opus 5's category. And then when we look at ChatGPT Soul, a 78%, and then other ones at much higher increments than they would be without this AI agent harness. I don't want to go too in depth in this. This deserves honestly its own video, and we'll probably go ahead and start playing around with this, and we'll post a video about it. But it seems to be that this AI agent harness makes these AI models so much smarter than they would be otherwise without it. So definitely, I think something just to kind of take a look at and explore a little deeper. This is very new though, so keep that in mind. These types of things come and go all the time. Plenty of AI agent harnesses get released, people get interested there's hype about it, and then the hype goes away, and then we go back to using whatever the default is. So that is something to keep in mind. But I do think this is definitely something worth taking a little bit closer of a look at in a full-fledged video. But I did just want to show you guys this graph right here and show you kind of the overall thesis on it as well. All right, that's pretty much it for today's daily update video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one.